Extra time, Immaculate Grid, Grid 196 for Football Sunday, the 15th of October. Happy Football Day. I think this is third week in a row where you have an early game from London. Big show. This, of course, is the bonus show for the Big Show Generations, talking about my sports generations. Check out yesterday's episode with Steve and me, and we discuss the expanded playoffs and the value of the regular season, or devaluing the regular season, if you ask Steve. And somehow, somewhere, and I'm still not sure how or what happened, but Steve calls Robert Horry a carpetbagger. So you have to listen just for that. It is one of the most perplexing things that I've heard him ever say, but also the most amazing things that he ever said. So yesterday's episode, check that one out. It's got to be our best one yet. And just the rant that Steve goes on, it's amazing. So check that out. That's yesterday's big episode 15 for the Big Show. But this is Generations Extra Time Show, Immaculate Grid. So even though that it's still football time, baseball playoffs, ALCS starts tonight. I just read that Scherzer and John Gray have been activated. So presumably, underneath Bruce Bochy, the Rangers, they got a shot, and we're going to talk about it. Also, is this going to be a replay of the 1980 NLCS if the Astros make it? Because the Astros, of course, were in the NL back in 1980, and the Phillies and the Astros met in the NLCS. So we're going to talk about that here in just a moment. But here's the grid for today. We have the Cincinnati Reds in the left-hand column. We have the Tampa Bays in the middle, and the 100 RBI in a season on the right-hand side. And we're going to have to be truthful. There's kind of two guys here that, we know, but kind of had to look it up. So we'll come clean for you. Rows are Kansas City Royals, the Gigantes in the middle, and the White Sox on the bottom. So let's just go left to right, top to bottom. For Reds and Kansas City, Kurt Stillwell. Yeah, I don't know how I know this 1%. Kurt Stillwell, he was a shortstop. He was a Red. He was a Royal in those mid to late 80s. I just remember his baseball card. Kurt Stillwell. He was nothing of note. I think he had one season where he had like 10 home runs, maybe 11 home runs, which for a shortstop at that point in time, that was kind of a big deal. Double-digit home runs. Here's one I kind of had to look up. Roberto Hernandez, Royals and Tampa Bay, 2%. So after he was a Giant, which, oh gosh, he was so terrible. He was so bad as a Giant. When the Giants again got Danny Darwin, it was part of that deal. Ugh. But yeah, he went to the Royals, and he actually was solid with the Royals. Roberto Hernandez. Ugh, that guy. So I kind of had to look that one up. So we'll take the L on that one. And then 100 RBI in a season for the Royals. I went Danny Tartabull, 2%. Just him, episode of Seinfeld. Anytime we can add a Seinfeld character in here, we're going to go. It's one of our favorite shows, that and 30 Rock. Let's move down one to the middle row. San Francisco Giants. Cincinnati Reds and Gigantes, Rich Aurelia, 3%. Rich Aurelia, to my surprise, is the answer to the last Giant to have 200 hits in a season. And then before that, you have to go back. Like, it goes back. So that he's like the only guy in my lifetime to have 200 hits or more in a season is Rich Aurelia. He had 35 home runs one season. Oh, those early 2000 Giants were just close, close, but just couldn't quite get there. And then they became terrible for those late 2000s, and then they turned it back around. Giants and Tampa Bay's Matt Moore. Matt Moore was supposed to help usher the Giants past 2014. And he would have to be taken out of the game against the Cubs. I want to say this is in the 2015 playoffs. So the Giants beat the Mets in the wild card, I believe. And then they go play the Cubs in the DS. And Matt Moore just can't get them over the hump in one of the games. And they have to bring in like 9 million relievers, and the Giants just can't beat the Cubs. I contend if they would have got past the Cubs, they had a reasonable shot at winning the World Series in 15. But they couldn't quite do it. Matt Moore, 2% here. And he led the league in losses, I think, for the Giants while he played for the Giants. I can't remember which year that was. It would have been 15 or 16. He only played a couple seasons. But he's still plugging along. I guess he's a reliever now. I guess he's on the Los Angeles, California Angels of Anaheim. 100 RBI in a season for Gigantes. I went Kevin Mitchell here this time, 3%, just to switch it up. Could have gone Will. Will's our favorite player, but I love Kevin Mitchell too. Evan Mitchell. Wow, that guy. All right, so let's talk Sox and Reds. I went Jerry Royce here, 0.09%. Now, Jerry Royce, left-hander. So he actually finished second in Cy Young in 1980. And it wasn't close. It wasn't like it was a close race. Steve Carlton, had like a 10.2 WAR, blew everybody out of the water. He was second in ERA to Don Sutton, led the league in innings pitched, led the league in strikeouts. I think he led the league in wins. Jerry Royce was second, a distant second. But Jerry Royce was right there. And Jerry Royce would end up getting a World Series in 81. It seems like the Dodgers can only win in these truncated seasons. Outside of 88, 81 and, whatever you want to call this, we'll give them an asterisk for the COVID year. Just to rankle my Doyer friends. But Jerry Royce, when I was in high school, I mean, that dude looked washed up. And if you even look at his profile picture, so that's as a Dodger. So he played with the Dodgers into like 87 or 88. And so let's say this is give him the benefit of the doubt. It's later on in his Dodger career. So he's only like 36, 37 years old. Dude looks like he's in his mid 50s. And dude always had, and he's a fair-haired white guy. But he always had that face that, where you have people that drink a lot of alcohol, drink a lot of beer, and they got like that rosy red face from drinking a lot. That's Jerry Royce. Dude always looked rough. And he was a decent pitcher, like, solid. But yeah, he would be a Red for a minute, go to the White Sox. But 1980, Steve Carlton wins Cy Young. And you have the Phillies win the East and the Astros win the West. And let's bring it back around to Bruce Bochy. Back then, these were 5-game series. So Pete Rose is on first base. This is game 4. Phillies are down 2-1. Pete Rose is on first. Greg Luzinski, the Bull, comes up. Greg Luzinski, also a White Sox, by the way. Greg Luzinski hits a ball to left field over the head of Jose Cruz. Bounces against the wall. Jose Cruz fields it cleanly. And Rose you look at Harper and he runs around the bases and his hat flies off, his helmet flies off. That was a Rose move. He's ripping that from Rose. So he's pulling that back, bringing that back. But Rose goes around second and, the ball's in front of him. So typically, and when the ball's in front of you, right, you're going to stop. You should stop at third, but he doesn't stop at third. Game's tied at this point, and he rounds third base, and he's barely rounding third base, and Cruz has already got the ball to the shortstop, Langostino. Langostino kind of like double clutches, but he still unloads a ball from deep, deep shortstop area, shallow left. And he short hops. Bochy is the catcher. Short hops Bochy. Now, you listening to the broadcast, it is Howard Cosell, and I don't know if I'm not sure who the other person is. And if I thought about it, maybe it could be McCarver, it could be, not sure. And I have to go back and listen to it again, but I'll definitely figure it out. But anyhow, it doesn't matter. And they're talking about how Bochy should have come up the line a little bit because the throw beats Rose. It's not even close. Like, the throw beats Rose. Maybe it's 7, 8, 9, 10 feet. It's not even close. But it short hops Bochy. Bochy takes it off the chest, and then he goes to pick up the ball, or attempts to go after the ball. And at that point, Rose is on him, and Rose doesn't even bother to go for it. I mean, Rose, it almost looks like he leaps, and he does this flying, forearm, left forearm shiver right to Bochy's face. I mean, and they come back, and if you go find it, search Game 4, NLCS, Rose Bochy. It'll come right up, first thing. And if you watch that through the end, they will show the view coming down the third base line, and you can just see Rose lifts up that chicken wing and just delivers it right to Bochy's chops. And then, of course, he just steps around him and scores. And you talk about, like, low rent, man. But that's how baseball was. And you want to say, well, that's the tough baseball. That's all this. Like, come on, man. Bochy's trying to get the ball, and you're dead to rights. If you want to run into him, okay, with the body shot, I guess I'm okay with that, I suppose, depending on what that looks like. But I mean, this is deliberate. I mean, you could tell it is, and they bring it up. I mean, they don't bring it up that it's deliberate. They bring, oh, he got him right in the chops. And that's this concept of, like, oh, manly baseball, like, that's how it's played. I don't know. I think that's a cheap shot, because it was a terrible play by Rose. Rose should have stopped at third. Now they say that, Bochy should have come up the line and not let the ball short hop him, and then he would have still been able to easily tag out Rose. And I don't disagree with that. But Rose is actually coming wide, and then he has to come back in to deliver that forearm shiver. And I've met Rose in person as a kid. And he, yeah, he played tough. But I mean, he's also the one that laid out, Fosse in an all-star game. And people like, oh, yeah, well, he's a hustle. He's Charlie Hustle. He's Charlie Dirty. He was a dirty player. He was a jerk. He was a jerk to a kid, 14-year-old kid. I wasn't even there to get his autograph. My buddy was. It's $20. $20 in the 80s to get an autograph. It's insane. And, he'd asked me if I was there, and I was like, no, unless he was going to give it to me for free. And, the interaction was a little taken aback by me as a 14-year-old kid. It's like, man, forget you, son. So 1980, go find that. Bochy brings it all back around tonight. Bochy and the Rangers. So you could have, in theory, Phillies and Houston's replay of the 1980 NLCS, or you can have the Phillies and Bochy taking it to the chops from the 80 NLCS. Jerry Royce. I'm telling you, look at his picture. He's got those rosy red cheeks. So you don't know if it's from being a fair-haired skinned guy playing outside all the time, not wearing sunscreen, or is it a guy that, was taking a few every night before bed? Jerry Royce. So here's another one that I kind of looked up. I mean, I kind of knew the answer, but I looked it up. Dave Martinez, 0.8%, Tampa Bay and Sox. I don't know. Dave Martinez is like played for a million teams. Kudos to him that, he brought value to his teams to stay in the league as long as he did. Because there's a lot of guys like him that didn't make it or didn't last as FP Santangelo, another kind of guy like that. FP, I think, lasted. He was, he was he was an Expo. He was a Giant. And he only lasted maybe 5 or 6 seasons. Also a late, didn't get in the league until he was maybe 26 or 27. Dave Martinez, 0.8%. So between Roberto Hernandez and Dave Martinez, I kind of had to double check and look those ones up. Because it's just Tampa Bay, we've talked about this just a few weeks ago. It's a team that you forget about. They weren't good. And then my knowledge of baseball players, over the last 4 or 5 years is terrible. Outside of the top guys, and if you're not a Giant or in the NL West, I don't know who you are. So bottom right-hand corner, 100 RBI and Sox. I went Dick Allen here, 4%. I've brought up Dick Allen a bunch of times. Rookie of the Year, one of, just a handful of players with 200 hits and a Rookie of the Year in the same season. Nomar, Ichiro, Harvey Keene, Tony Oliva. Dick Allen's one of those guys, has an MVP, has a 40 home run season. Kind of a tragic story initially, and then I think it turns into a good story. But go find that episode. We kind of detail Dick Allen's career. But the guy was pretty phenomenal. And if he was in a different era or a different time or a different team, could he have been or would he have been even better than he already was? The guy, used to drink a lot, and he was kind of to himself, and he had a lot of challenges in his career from the pressure that he was receiving and the racism, the treatment that he received in Philly. You also got to think when he started with the Phillies, it was less than 10 years that baseball had fully integrated. And so apparently, he turned to drinking because, he wore a batting helmet on the field. People, home fans were throwing things at him, batteries, different things at him on the field as a home player. And the guy was good. It wasn't like he was a chump. I mean, the guy could hit, but he wore a batting helmet into the field. And the way the press made it seem was like, this guy's mercurial. This guy's, different. No, the guy was black in a city that at the time wasn't feeling a black man being as good as he was. And he was to himself and he was drinking, and, the guy had some challenges. And so it's different. Go listen to that episode. We go through his redemption arc too. Not only his, but the redemption arc of Philly fans. And I think that's one of the things that could be taken away is like, right, times change and we can get smarter. We can learn more. We can have more tolerance. It's okay. It's okay to get better. It's okay to improve. It's when we get obstinate and we take it about ourselves individually versus thinking about the other person and how they view things and how they absorb things and their experience. Because their experience, we can have the same shared thing and see, feel, and experience it totally differently, even though it's the same exact, time together. So Dick Allen, that guy's, I wish I would have been able to really see him play. I was too young really to watch him. And then again, baseball, very regional sport at that, if you call it regional now, think about it then. There's no way, unless the Giants were playing the Phillies, wouldn't have even seen him. And even then in Sacramento, it wasn't like we were getting all of the Giants games. So most of the things you had to listen to on the radio. So, being able to see Dick Allen play was very difficult during that period of time, even if you were Phillies, even if you're in Philadelphia at the time. That's the grid for a football Sunday on the 15th of October. It's grid 196. This is extra time. It is Immaculate Grid. It is the bonus show for generations, talking about my sports generations. We're charging to 1,000 listens. Keep listening for when the 1,000 listen party is going to be. And if you're local or if you want to travel, you will be invited and you will know where to go. But follow the show, share it with your friends. We're growing and we appreciate it. Thank you much. I'm Jonathan. We'll see you.